Welcome back to Christianity 101. Before we get started today, a little sidetrack, which I'm sure you guys are used to by now. There's a man that I highly respect, that I'm not going to name his name nor position, but I was watching one of his sermons, and he decided that after the sermon he was going to go on a tangent. And this tangent was a miniature crusade against meat. Ordinarily, you wouldn't really think that of as a big deal. Now, many Christians are either vegan or vegetarian, but it's not like we can't have meat. Now, this is not the full issue. The issue is he was up on the pulpit, and when you're up there, you've got a responsibility, which is the same responsibility you have if you're, say, recording episodes explaining about Christianity, and that is, it's never supposed to be your words. It is supposed to always be biblical. So when you're doing something that's not biblical, and passing off your own opinions as facts, then if you can do that for small subjects, you are going to do it for big ones. And so if you're watching this and you're in a position where you've got that kind of responsibility, you must be extra careful. In fact, I've got a person who goes ahead and reviews these videos before I post them. He is a little behind, but he went ahead and watched the fourth one, and you might be saying, well, we're on the fourth one. Yes, we are. I recorded a different fourth one yesterday, actually. Excuse me. So I went ahead and recorded this one, and I did a tangent. And if you would watch that one, which only my reviewer did, it was semi-slanderous. Was I upset for a good reason? Yes. If you are watching someone and you're noticing that they are not following the responsibility nor biblical teachings, you have a right to be angry. This is not something that you can go on tangents and do that with. But I committed the same mistake. So, this is twofold. First, if you are in that position, ensure that it's not your opinions, not your emotions. You are not the one that is going ahead and giving these people this information. You are simply the mouthpiece. And so make sure the words you're speaking are God's. Secondly, I was going somewhere with this. Right. Secondly, this is a Christian channel. I'm not trying to do ads or propaganda to you. But if you are a Christian and you're watching this and you notice that I'm doing something that's not biblical, please call me out on it. I'd rather be a fool for a minute and have to admit that than be a fool who leads others astray. So, if you're here because you want information of what's going on, welcome. I will do my best to provide it. If you are here as a Christian who's curious about the new viewpoint, hold me accountable. In a way, I am trusting you guys to call me out if I'm doing something wrong. So today, we are hitting the one last point we have before we get to Abram, or otherwise known as Abraham, and we'll get to how his name changed there. So first one, the only point we have today is the Tower of Babel. Now, the Tower of Babel was believed to be in southern Mesopotamia. Let me see if I can pronounce this. The land of Shinar. Now, this is sometime after the floods. Earth had become populated again, and man decided that they were going to build a tower. We're going to look at Genesis 11. That's Numbers. That is not Genesis. Genesis 11, 5 through 9. This is what I get for taking out my place marker. So, sorry, 4 through 9. And they said, Go, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they began to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. So the question you should always ask is why? Because that question is the one that's going to check to see if or whether or not it makes sense. And why did God phrase it like that, saying, man can do whatever he wants, so let's go confuse him? Well, number one, and the point which kind of strikes me, there's no explanation. There's no evidence given why God did this. So we have to look at theories, which there's no evidence for this, so let's go ahead and make sure it makes sense. Let's make sure it follows biblical paths. Let's try to figure it out. But again, this is not facts. This is not biblically supported. It is more exploring the reasons of possibly why. Okay? So, first up, that was a very arrogant move. Now, if we remember correctly, Satan decided that he was going to take the place of God. And now we have mankind after the flood. And the flood didn't occur because, most people were good but just didn't believe in God. The flood occurred because the world was rife with evil. And once we understand that, we kind of understand what man, when they're all in cooperation, gets to. Now, there are good people. Even nowadays, when it seems the world's really going down the drain, there are a lot of good people. But the problem is the grand majority of people, their hearts are set to evil. So, when mankind is in full cooperation, they're like, hey, let's build a tower to heaven. Which, to me, is almost seeming like a challenge to God. And I can't imagine that sat very well. After all, the last time someone challenged him and went, I'll be him. And humans are kind of going, we don't need to wait for a redeemer. Let's just go up to heaven now. God's like, okay, let's make sure this can't happen again. Now that one is actually, to me, a shaky theory. Even to me. Because while it does make sense, it isn't infallible. There's still holes we can poke in that theory. So let's go ahead and look at the actual practical applications. And the two theories, or rather the theory with two parts that makes more sense. Now the first is we understand science nowadays because it's impossible not to. The Earth's not flat, heaven's not just beyond the clouds. The Earth goes around the sun, not the other way around. So we understand that the higher you get in the atmosphere, the less oxygen there is, and you are going to get to a point where you suffocate if you don't have special equipment. And, let me see, Wright Brothers, Kitty Hawk, that was 1900 to 1903, that's really when men started exploring the ability to fly, in machines. And it wasn't until, I want to say, after World War II that we really started exploring that, and we really started going up into the atmosphere. And that's when it became necessary to have encased compartments, recycled air, that stuff that you find on airliners nowadays, to be able to breathe up there. So we understand that if basically the Stone Age, people tried building a tower, they got up high enough, people would start dying. Or getting dizzy, lack of oxygen, falling off. Secondly, have you seen skyscrapers? They have to be specially constructed. One of the reasons, and if you look at Dubai especially, is the high-speed winds when you get higher up in the atmosphere. Especially on desert plains. And we can kind of imagine, there's no proof that it was kind of a flatter land, but we can kind of imagine it probably was. If you're building a tower, you kind of want a flat area. So, probably it was kind of along the same lines as Dubai. You get up there, you're going to have high-speed winds. You get high enough, the tower's going to get knocked over. Also accompanying that, on the same structural, if we're talking about, we've got the oxygen. Second part is going to be the structural. And earthquakes, buildings have to be specially designed against earthquakes. Otherwise, they're going to topple over. So you've got people trying to build a tower and building a city around it. And a lot of people are going to die if this thing gets completed. And if it doesn't get completed now, people are going to have the same idea. So God's like, okay, fine. We'll make sure they can't cooperate in this manner again. And we really didn't until the Industrial Age. So for 4 or 5 millennia, this didn't actually, it's probably closer to outside of 5 millennia, an attempt like this didn't happen again. You didn't have tall buildings. And if you're talking about the pyramids, those don't count. They are very structurally sound. And we don't know how they were designing this Tower of Babel, but if you're designing it to go to heaven, you're not going to stop. It would have collapsed or fallen over and gotten a lot of people killed eventually. So the guy's like, okay, we're going to make sure this doesn't happen again. We're going to make sure a bunch of people don't die. Let's go mix up their language, because if you're in a town where everyone speaks the same language and everyone's kind of the same, you're like, those are brothers, we're fine. And if you've got someone, however, that is different from you, that's really where human conflict starts, because if someone's different than you, humans naturally perceive that as a threat. So you're not going to be committing 100% to a project. You're going to be looking at the person over there going, are they trying to hurt me? What are they doing? So I think it was really an act of mercy to make sure that mankind really didn't try to kill themselves before the world, I guess, evolved too much. Anyways, that's the theory. The facts are, my apologies, that they tried building a giant tower to heaven, and there the language, and God decided to mix up languages so people couldn't cooperate like that again. Take that as you will. Check the theories as you will. If you've got your own theories on it, go ahead and let me know. This was just kind of a pit stop, and I am sorry that it took me 2 weeks to do another one. I've got no excuse. Let's go ahead and try to get back on the weekly thing. Next week we are going to be looking at Abraham, and really the founding point of the Jews. So as always, thank you for watching, and may the Force be with you. Wait, that's the wrong religion.